Hey everybody, this is Josh Spilker, and I am head of search marketing here at AirOps. And I'm super excited to welcome Josh Grant, former VP of growth at Webflow, and now with Stacked GTM. Josh, how are things going today?
No complaints at all, man. Excited to spend the next 45 minutes or so together.
Super excited that you are here, and we're going to be talking about the 30-day AI search pipeline recovery sprint. I'm super excited about this topic because sometimes we have the mistaken idea that AEO has to take for a long time, and we're going to show you some really actionable things that you can do in just a few days.
So I'm Josh Grant. I am former VP of growth at Webflow and Affirm, the buy now pay later company. There I led global acquisition, right? So I led SEO, AEO, paid media, lifecycle, etc. And now I run Stack GTM. So Stack GTM is a media and advisory business. So effectively, like I help companies grow with AEO, and then I publish what happened. So build in the wild, fail out loud, share the receipts. And yeah, just stoked to be here today.
Yeah, yeah. How's it been going so far with Stack GTM on your own?
Insane, insane. I didn't expect it to scale so quickly, and I'm working with like some of the coolest brands out there right now. So it's been exciting. Every day is a new challenge. It's overwhelming for sure. I'm working more hours than I ever have in my career, but I'm having a blast doing so.
Yeah, yeah, that's great to hear. It's been exciting to watch you make that leap as well. So I wanted to talk a little bit about AirOps before we jump into a lot of our content today. If you are interested in how you can employ a lot of these strategies that Josh and myself will be talking about today, you can stop guessing and turn AI search into a real growth channel. So with the live demo, you'll get to see some of the exact playbooks that other top companies are using, like Angie, Asana, Bitly. You can see how to do content refreshes and then examples of how to capture those mentions and citations, which we'll be diving into today, and how you can really turn those into growth for your company. Feel free to scan that QR code there to get a one-on-one live demo, or feel free to drop us a line at growth@airapps.com. Put webinar in the subject line, and I will drop that into the chat as well. Let me set the agenda a bit, and Josh will be walking us through a lot of his strategies. This actually came from a Substack article or a newsletter article that he did recently. We'll also be sharing that, but it's going to be talking about why 30 days is possible to recover some pipeline in AI search, four different ways that you can do it, or four plays to do it, why and how to run AI search like a channel, and then some tips for that 30-day sprint. So we're going to be covering all that today, and then we'll have time for Q&A at the end as well.
And like, let's start on why 30 days is even possible, right? So
Yeah.
like when pipeline is behind and like the quarter is closing, AI search could actually be a relatively quick lever. And I've been in the seat multiple times. And it's not because it's easy, right? It's because citations don't require rankings. So most brands are already getting retrieved. They're just failing to convert into a citation. And that gap, right? That gap closes in weeks where SEO takes months or years. And I think like the nuance up front to call out is AEO is inherently probabilistic. So when I think about these plays, they are the highest probability plays for short-term influence on pipeline. So no guarantees, but definitely like high value plays that I'm seeing across the book of business that I support and from the AirOps data that supports this on items that you can move in the short term.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I like what you've said in the article and other places here about some of the difference between SEO and AEO.
SEO and AEO are they're not the same game with a new name. Like they for sure share a lot, but the mechanics underneath are actually quite different. So if you think about SEO, the top of the page or top of page one is a line effectively, and that line barely moves. So the average number one result in SEO is almost 5 years old, and then seven of the top 10 are more than 3 years old. So you're really like not losing on quality, like you're losing on how long the other guy or the other gal has been standing in that position. So that's why every SEO plan that I read is like, give us 6 months, give us a year, etc. Compared to AEO, right, which does not have that line. It builds a new one every time someone asks. So no leaderboard, right? Like fresh search, fresh pages, answer written from scratch. And look at the bars, right? Like SEO is 5 years to the top. AEO could be back in 2 runs. In more than half the brands that fall out of an answer are back within 2 runs. So Nothing happened to them. They just didn't get picked at that time. So when I think about citations, uh, this is the one, I guess like this is one that should change how you think about even going to work next week, is about 60% of AI overview citations go to pages that don't rank in the
Mm.
top 20 at all, right? So citations don't need rankings. And I think that's important to sit with for a second because you don't need to win page one to get in the answer. So in SEO, effectively, you have to outlast them. In AEO, you have to outstructure them, right? And waiting takes years. Structure in a lot of these plays can take quite literally an afternoon. With that, like a lot of teams think that models can't find them, which is actually interesting because that's often not the problem at all. And I actually really, really appreciate the data that AirOps put out here, where you guys looked at 7,500 commercial queries and to answer them, chat pulled in over 200,000 pages. So that's every page that the model opened, the model read, and your page is in there, right? Only about 15% made it into an actual answer. So the rest get read effectively and they get set aside. So the model opened your page, it read it, and it ultimately picked someone else. So that's why I say like you're not invisible, right? You're unsighted, which are two very, very, very different problems, right? And they cost very different amounts as well. Like if you're not in the pool at all, uh, you need new authority. That takes months, right? If you're in the pool but you're not getting picked, that's more structural on
Mm.
a page that you already own, right? And you can fix that again in an afternoon, in hours, in a couple days. So when you think about like pipe being behind, everyone wants to green light more content and create more and more content. Don't, right? Like new pages have to fight their way into the pool first. And the whole premise of this is like, what can you move quickly to influence pipe in the first 30 days? And 30 days doesn't buy that.
Yeah, and one of the points that you made was that SEO is meant to outlast and AEO is to outstructure.
Totally.
What kind of led you to think about it in those two frameworks? Because I really like the way you phrase that.
Yeah, I think like my Webflow experience, full stop. So we had really good pages that were not winning.
Mm.
And what we did is we didn't write new pages. We changed the shape of the ones that we had effectively. So paragraphs would become tables, right? Long answered would become short answers. And answer share on those core queries went past 60% with the exact same pages. So it's interesting. Like it told me that nothing about our authority changed that month. Really, only the format did. So the thing
Mm.
holding us back was never authority. It was shape. So in contrast, like in SEO, the page ahead of you that's 5 years old, you can't outright that. You have to like I guess you outright it, but then you have to wait. In AEO,
Yeah.
there's no line to wait in. So the model just needs something very, very clean to lift. And whoever gives it that cleanly answer, that cleanliness from a formatting perspective, wins that slot. And waiting for SEO takes years. Structure you can fix quite quickly.
Yeah, and then when you're trying to talk to maybe the C-suite, the CMOs about how this could change your content program, like what are some of the things that you are advising them on? Because
Yeah.
they might just say like, "Hey, create more content, create new content."
Well,
Yeah, how are you talking to them about it?
Yeah, for sure. And I'll also say, like, before I dive into that, it's probably the number one conversation I have with
Mm.
founders, with CEOs, with boards, with CMOs, is like, hey, I'm spending this money on all of this content. We hired a team for it, we're with an agency for it, and we're not seeing any influence in like in AI search or increase in AEO. So like how I think about this is they're not inherently wrong as they're thinking about SEO, but
Mm.
like more content is a real strategy when you think about traditional search is probably a better way to say it. Like it runs on 6 months, it runs on a year. Here, where I'm thinking about, you have 30 days to influence this, only 15% of pages a model reads actually get cited. And the other 85%, they get read and they get skipped. So it's not really like a volume problem. It's a conversion problem on pages you already paid for effectively. So a new page starts at zero and it has to earn its way into that pool first. And then kind of cumbersome, but it's another 85% stat, but I reference this all of the time. And it's actually based off of this AirOps data is 85% of brand mentions aren't from on-site at all, right? They're from third-party lists.
Right.
So the fix isn't publishing more. And I think like that data is really, really compelling to tell that story around. As you think about on-site and off-site, on-site is a lot of like structural, a lot of foundational work that you need to do. But we know that, roughly that 85% comes from offsite sources. So in the short term, it's cool because like there are structural things you can do on site, and I'll cover that in some of these plays that you can really make like big influence in in a short term. But as you think about holistic AEO strategy, uh, sure, content is a part of it, but it's more distribution of that content in third party sources and offsite sources.
So we're going to dive into a little bit more about those plays. So first, we're going to talk about what he alluded to there with how to reclaim some of those retrieved pages, how you can then rebuild some of your comparison pages to take advantage of the structural needs of AEO, and then how to make your key pages extractable, and then why getting into those third-party lists are so important. So we are going to start here with number one, reclaiming the pages that you already do get retrieved for. Josh, what are your points on this one?
How I think about this is like retrieved, not cited. So this is the first filter. Again, retrieved, not cited. The model already reads these pages every time. It just passes them over. So these pages did the hard part, meaning they're actively in the pool, right? They're just not being cited. And then my second filter that I apply is cited last month, but not right now. So these pages had it and then lost it. Usually, like a page went stale, somebody updated their page and you didn't. And they're also like the easiest ones to win in this entire list, right? We know that they had recent citations. And then commercial intent. So I sort by how close that page is to actual money, right? Because I want to make sure, again, we're influencing pipe, we're short on pipe, we're trying to solve this problem. So those are things like pricing pages, versus pages, best of pages. Those go to the top, right? It's like, look at the table, pricing is marked high, that's your first fix. It's not like, hey, look at this blog post from 2023. You have to start like where the actual buyer is deciding. And then this point on it being a 20-minute job, not a rewrite, this is to alleviate some of the anxiety, right? It's not just
Mm.
like, hey, rewrite all of your pages. A lot of people hear refresh and they think like total rewrite of site. And fortunately, it's not that. How I think about this is update what's changed, right? So fix anything that is not true anymore. Old pricing, a claim that moved, a stat that's like 3 years old. The model's looking for current, effectively, like current anything. Stale numbers are effectively why it can skip you and often does skip you. And I have a client like right now that's going very hard on this, publishing recent data, publishing unique data. And we're seeing these pages get cited again within weeks. It's been quite interesting. So as I think about this, it's like add one fresh number. That's like kind of the cheapest credibility signal that you can buy. And it also gives the model something that is super, super clean to quote. Turning paragraphs into listicles, right? Like find the densest paragraph and breaking it into a list. That's the one that probably matters most, right? Like a model can lift a list very, very, very easy. It's very difficult for a model to pick up a wall of text, interpret it, and then recontextualize it to the actual user or searcher. And then the last two, right? Like update the publish date, resubmit the URL, kind of like foundational web stuff. And the data is also interesting here as well. It's like pages untouched for 3 months are 3 times more likely to lose their citations. Also, data that you guys put out that I use all of the time as well. And then 83% of citations on commercial queries go to pages updated in the last year. So, like, recency is for sure real here and very important. And I see it in my own practice all of the time.
I want to go ahead and jump in on something Teresa asked. What if you don't have published dates? Some of your pages can have like modified dates, like on
Yeah.
the back end.
Yep.
But then also for like your blog or like guide post, I would suggest that you do have some type of published date on them, even if it's like last updated type page.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of conflicting info about whether you should have an original published date versus a last published date. I'll let some people do their own research on that, but I would suggest like having a date specifically on your articles and blog posts too.
Yeah, it's consistent what I'm putting forward as well for guidance in the work that I'm doing, Josh. And then cycle time is the constraint, not creativity. So here's what actually limits most teams, right? Is it's not ideas, right? Like everyone has a backlog of ideas. It's how long it takes to get one change live. If you think about like Chime's a really great example. So Chime cut production time 89%. Well, they tripled citations in that same window. And that's the page you're looking at on the right here, right? And you look at Venn went from 2 hours a page to 10 minutes, right? So citation grew 600% with two people. I'm not saying, hey, go grow a big team, go scale a big budget. This is how you think about like how you fundamentally create a faster loop. And the point here is like neither of them got more creative. They
Mm.
just shipped more faster. In a system that rebuilds the answer every time someone asks, the team that updates weekly or bi-weekly, right, will forever beat the team that updates once or twice a year. And I think this is just like a mindset shift that folks supporting these types of pages, right, really need to get in. Is like before it was like create a brief, build a web page, core marketer leads it, brings in a copywriter, pulls in different people to get that page live. Someone builds in your CMS, you publish it, it's dormant until there's like a website redesign. That's not the game anymore at all, right? Like recency beats stagnant content, stale content all day long.
Yeah, so for these two companies like Chime and Venn, they're cutting a lot of their cycle time and their refresh. Do you think speed is the only element here, or is there like an element of creativity or the information that they're bringing in too? Like, how do you kind of balance that
Yeah,
speed versus quality is kind of always the eternal question.
100%. It's a nuanced question with probably a nuanced answer. Like speed is the visible part, but it's not the whole thing, right? Like when a page takes 2 hours, you ship it and you walk away and you never look at it again. If it takes 10 minutes, like you can go back next week and check, and that creates this like loop from a project perspective. And why that loop matters rather is like the answer gets rebuilt every time someone asks. When you touch pays weekly, you show up in each refresh. So again, you ship twice a year, you're stale. So speed gives you volume, volume gives you learning. 10 pages a week, you find out quite fast what earns a citation. One page a month, you don't learn anything. So I think it's like Chime and Venn here didn't get smarter. They got more turns at bat and they
Mm.
created that process, that loop from it.
Yeah, and then maybe dive into a little bit more about the 20-minute rewrite. We know that some pages are just more important than others. Some, have more information than others. How do you kind of think about balancing that for the rewrite and like maybe compare that to a typical content refresh that somebody might do?
Yeah, it's a good question. Like a normal refresh is a project, right? It's like
Mm,
brief, writer, review, ship, kind of like that process I just went through. Um, Someone writes the intro and adds 500 words, and then like 3 weeks later, it's live and nothing moves. And none of that was why the model skipped you, right? Like when I think about this version, it's like five things, no writer even effectively needed. It's like fix what isn't true. That could be an old price, that could be an old claim, that could be an old number. Add one fresh stat, or like proprietary piece of data that is recent. Or I should say, like, turn your densest paragraph into a list, right? Update the date, right? Resubmit the URL, kind of the same flow we just walked through. Um, and the difference is like a normal refresh makes the page better for a human. This makes it more usable or extractable for a model. The words can stay the same often, but the shape is what effectively changes. And a simple test, right? Like I say this all the time. If it needs a brief, like you're doing too much. So it's kind of
mm.
just like a philosophy that I stand by there.
Yeah, for the 20-minute kind of rule. Yeah, I like
Exactly.
that.
Exactly.
All right, we'll keep moving on here. We got three more plays to talk about. So if you do have some questions, we do have a few coming in the chat. I'm keeping an eye on them. Some of these we are going to get to at the end. But for number two, a really actionable play that I think about a lot because I have comparison pages here at AirOps as well. But rebuild your comparison pages specifically to be extracted.
Yeah, so let's talk about comparison pages. These sit closest to the actual deal, right? Like the buyer already decided they're going to buy something. They're deciding what effectively. So again, like in AirOps data, comparison pages gave the biggest citation lift of any other commercial page. And Josh, keep me honest there, but I believe that is the case. And if you think about this, like start with the list, and you probably have more than you actually think. So pick the top five, and that's like your week two of getting into this sprint. Um, it's turn those paragraphs into tables, right? Almost every verses page is written as paragraph. Like go to your competitors right now, most likely they're written as paragraphs. A model can't take this very cleanly, and it effectively will take the comparison from a review site or someone else who has used the table, right? We're trying to get the model to cite our own source. And if we don't structure content in this way, it will go find a cleanlier source for that data. Also, AirOps stat, three tables on a page earned about 26% more citations. So tables are actually like pretty efficient when you think about pricing pages. The other thing I'll say is like real numbers in the actual pricing table. This one is super, super interesting. So not like starts with, not a range, actual numbers. So having seven distinct price points earned 16% more citations. So you have to be specific enough where the model doesn't have to guess, right? You're trying to make it very, very clean for the model. And then short sentences, right? Like look at the chart, 10 words or fewer, how you're going to win that. And that's it, right? Like just shorter. One line, one claim.
A webinar guest that we've had before, really good SEO in the space, Steve Toth, he describes this as having like shorter hops. So then the model doesn't have to like hop through a sentence quite as long of like super dense prose with a lot of like adverbs and stuff. Just give it like straight to the information. So he really recommends like those declarative sentences that just get like straight to the point instead of making the model like work harder. I always kind of think of, I really like that metaphor as far as like the hops go.
100%. And even myself, like I had to unlearn this as someone who like enjoys personally writing long form content and has built like at scale SEO teams. It's totally a different mindset where it's like quantity of text doesn't matter anymore. It's like how quickly you can provide a very, very, very clean answer is how you should be thinking overall across all AEO services.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I would say to that, like, that doesn't mean don't do your thought leadership content. Like,
Totally.
just kind of think of it as like having a different job, is how I describe it. Is like different posts have different jobs, different pieces of content have different jobs. So what we're talking about right here is specifically being extracted in some of the models. That's going to be a lot different than like your investor update or whatever.
Totally.
So
Totally.
definitely keep that in mind.
Totally.
We're gonna go ahead and go to the next play here. How to make we Josh touched on this a little bit, but also how to make your pricing and feature pages in particular extractable.
Pricing page again, right? Like sits closest to revenue, but also like oftentimes nobody touches this page. Um, Someone asking assistant what you cost isn't browsing, right? They're actively deciding. They're checking that like last thing before they effectively commit to purchase. So that's the closest AI search gets to like actual like bottom of funnel true conversion intent. So this is kind of how I think about it in like kind of like a scrappy way that I go about this is if you open ChatGPT and you ask for your own product costs, if it answers from someone else's page or gets the number wrong or you lost your pricing page to like a stranger's old roundup, which happens all the time, like that's a sign that something is wrong. Like I've seen a founder's plan, like pro plan, get misquoted by like $20 a seat because their pricing was a slider, right? It had that sliding scale and no readable numbers anywhere, and effectively confused, or I should say confused, it made it less clean for an LLM to extract an answer, so it pulled it from elsewhere. So the fix here is interesting because like you don't need to redesign anything. You need to put the pricing in a plain list under what design like you might already have. Name every tier, name every number. That same founder who I worked with added a flat tier list under that existing page, and it was quite literally fixed by the next model pull.
Wow.
So yeah, it's powerful. It's also nuanced because like I think like the creative side of us, we want to create these like really beautiful pricing pages, have those sliders, like make it just look like a really cool experience before you buy. The hard part is like from a discoverability perspective or citation perspective, oftentimes those trip up LMs for sure.
Yeah, we had one question come in. I think this is a good place to hit on it. From Amanda. She says, "What if we don't share pricing on our website? Do you have any suggestions or just thoughts on that?"
Yeah, it's a hard one. And I think this comes up a lot when you work with like PLG businesses versus enterprise businesses that
Right.
might like, mask a pricing behind a contact sales form. It goes to sales. It's hard, right? Like I'm all for pricing transparency, and I know that is hard in the enterprise. I'd say that like this isn't going to fundamentally break your on-site strategy if you're not publishing pricing. I think the nuance is if you're in a world where you're an enterprise business competing against a self-serve or PLG incumbent that are, driving a lot of quality, sorry, quantity, oftentimes like they will win very very cleanly when they are exposing price and you're not. So I think part of this is actually like a company like a strategic company wide question more than anything is like if you're
Mhm.
focused on the enterprise and enterprise revenue, I'm not too worried. If you have incumbents or competitors who are trying to like erode the lower end of your market and like pushing pricing hard, then I think there's like a strategic company conversation to have to be like, is our, there's a product conversation around like product readiness to compete in the self-serve world, and then like pricing and packaging conversations about that.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Amanda, hopefully that helps answer your question there. We're going to go ahead and move on to our fourth play here, which is getting into third-party lists. We've
Yep.
talked a lot here at AirOps about like earned media and offsite placements. We're seeing this become an even more important part of the search ecosystem, and I think a lot of your recommendations and research kind of point to the same thing.
Yeah, 100%. So, like, if you look at this chart, and I already quoted this, but I'm going to quote it again because I want everyone thinking about this. 85% of brand mentions in AI search come from third-party sources. It is the biggest way to influence your AEO overall. Only 13% come from your own site, which means you're 6 times more likely to be cited through someone else's page than your own page. So where they live, right? Like about 90% of those are listicles, they're roundups, they're review pages. It's like best tool for X, top 10 alternatives. And where you sit in those matters a ton as well. Like roughly 80% of mentioned brands sit within the top three. So when you're thinking about those listicles, those roundups, those, alternative pages, position is not random. Position actually matters a lot. Like number nine barely even counts. So it's not just like get into these sources, or it's actually like how do you get into these sources and penetrate higher up into the list? Because we actually know this matters in influencing AEO here. Tactic wise, right? It's like don't guess what site matters. Oftentimes, this happens all the time. People are like Forbes, TechCrunch, like they name like the big ones. um, how I think about this is, or how what I actually do quite literally is, I'll ask chat or I'll ask Perplexity a category question, your category question, and I write down every source that it cites, and then this list effectively becomes your target set. And it's not like a wish list of publications. It's the model has already told you where the model is shopping in your category. So this isn't like do more PR. It's actually much simpler. It's like email the author, tell them 2 or 3 of their data points are out of date. Hand them your current pricing or a refresh stat, and you're asking them for an update, and you're effectively doing their job for them because you're providing all of it, and you're likely to influence like how you show up on those lists, right? I think it's important, obviously, to mention the community layer alongside this as well, right? Like 48% of AI citations come from user generated sources, so Reddit alone is still showing up in like 1 in 5 answers. So give a real answer, right? Like name
Mhm.
multiple tools, including competitors. Like the cynical version gets spotted and burned every time. So like authenticity is absolutely key there. Start this in week one because this is the slowest play for sure, right? Like
Mhm.
this takes time to go scrape those sources, get updated stat, and then email them. And how I'd sequence this like quick play is if you bang that out in week one, then you can go to on-site stuff very quickly as you're working on this off-site work concurrently.
I would say too in AirOps we have a spot in the platform where you can see like all the offsite citations, and so these
Yeah.
are the domains that are influencing your prompts the most. So whatever prompts you're tracking, we have a list of certain sites and URLs that then influence that answer. So we're seeing like a lot of like third-party sites that could be Reddit, YouTube, LinkedIn, but then it could also be maybe even your competitor site is influencing how the models are answering the prompts, and then it is other related like industry sites too. So then you can see like a list of all those URLs, and then like Josh said, start to reach out to them. And if you want help doing that, we also have a great offsite services team that is starting to build out that motion for a lot of our clients. But you can also start kind of the quick way, like Josh described there, of just going straight into the model or to the LLM and starting to ask those questions.
Yeah, and again, the way I think of it is like it's validation of like what the model is shopping for, and very seldom is it like the obvious, like the TechCrunch, the Forbes, etc. Like those are the ones where like your CMO or CEO are like, "Hey, why are we not here?" Oftentimes, there's sources that like I haven't heard of, your CMO hasn't heard of,
Hmm.
etc. So it doesn't require like I think about like the workflow within a business. sure, you go to your PR team and like have them handle it, but also like you can just email them and handle it, and you'll like gain a lot of velocity from that perspective. Because they're typically smaller publications, or I should say, often smaller publications.
Right, right. We're seeing a lot of smaller domains, like you said, getting
Totally.
cited in the LLMs. Uh,
Absolutely.
one question that we're kind of struggling with here, and I know a lot of teams are, is just like, how are you balancing between creating like on-site content versus like that off-site outreach, like you just talked
Yeah.
about? I mean, a lot of this is beyond like the 30-day time frame and is more strategic, but in your experience at Webflow and talking to other teams, like how are you kind of advising on that mix?
Yeah, so I'm gonna give like two different answers here, right? One pertaining to like this sprint exactly, and then how I think about like AEO more broadly, right?
Okay.
Like, let me answer the latter one first. And I think about AEO more broadly. I actually use this whole premise of like 85% being offsite versus onsite as almost like a way of where to spend my time. So if I'm working with a client and like I'm doing a really deep dive on like holistic AEO strategy, typically it's going to come to roughly that, right? Like the bulk of work is going to be offsite, where there's going to be just like on-site foundations you need to do. Now, when you think about a sprint like this, it's actually flipped, right? Where roughly like 70% of the time I'd spend on on-site and 30% off-site. And I think the reason matters here more than the actual number is here we're solving really structural things for short-term gains. So going back to like that 85-15, like 85% tells you where those mentions live, right? It doesn't tell you like what you control. On site, you decide and you ship today. Offsite, you could be waiting weeks for a stranger to update their posts. And yeah, it can take time for sure. So, timing, not volume, almost is how I think about this. So, when I think about a sprint to influence pipeline in the short term, it's like start with offsite outreach again on day one or week one, because we know it takes the longest. Even though that's like going to be 30% of the effort on this actual sprint. But it is the slowest thing, so it requires the longest runway. So send those emails on a Monday of week one, right? Just like get at, and then go back to like doing your on-site work. And the cool part is like they effectively feed each other, right? Like when a writer updates their roundup, they pull your numbers from your pricing page. If that page is a slider with no numbers, they'll grab an old figure from somewhere else.
Mm.
So offsite, first place to start, on-site, first for effort when you think about like a short-term structural sprint like this. There's nuance to that answer because there is no perfect answer. Like if you're trying to really influence structural things short term to spike numbers for, revenue gains in period, you're going to be spending more time on high value on-site is probably the right way to put it. But if you're thinking about like how you grow in AEO practice over time, the bulk of that work is going to be offsite.
Yeah, let me add something there too, which I'm trying to think about like the owned content versus the unowned content, is you actually can have quite a bit of influence on, let's say, owned third-party domains. And what I mean by that is like, how are you appearing in LinkedIn as far as your company description? How are you appearing in YouTube as far as your company description? How are you appearing in G2 or Trust Radius as far as that goes as well? All of those things from what I'm seeing have influence on what's being cited. So you actually do have a little bit of ownership over some of these third party sites. And that's like a very quick win that you can implement within 30 days as well. I know Chris Long from Nective, who we've had as a guest, he just published something I think on his LinkedIn about doing that and having that consistent message
Totally.
across like multiple social channels, and that could really help too. So I don't want that to be ignored either. It's some stuff that you can do on your own without waiting like for publishers to update their pages.
Such a good call out. And like many of like the AO experts in this space, like I'm having this conversation with right now, is even like these even larger companies will have so many messaging inconsistencies across different platforms that they own. Again, LinkedIn, G2, your own website, etc. So even just the exercise of like consistency with messaging and positioning across different channels is going to be a tailwind for AEO overall. So really, really back that point, Josh.
Yeah, yeah. All right, we're coming into the home stretch here a bit, so feel free to like drop in your questions. But we've talked about so many great tactics, and so now, how do we bring all those stuff together? Josh is going to provide us some more tips on that.
Yeah, this is for sure how I think about it. So, like paid search gets a target, a budget, attribution, and a weekly review. And I think like AI search has earned that same treatment.
Mm,
Otherwise, in an org, it just gets treated like a science project. So I think like there's very smart ways to think about how you show up and how you think about data to support this. So I think about answer, share, and mention rate. So that's what percentage of answers to the questions that drive deals include you. So pick your query set and commit to it here effectively. And that would be the number that replaces rank. Dual signal rate, I talk about quite a bit. So both cited and mentioned in the same answer. Important to know, right? Like brands with both are 40% more likely to keep reappearing. So it is very important to win this over. And then only about 28% of answers contain both today. So look at the chart, right? Like that gap for sure is worth chasing. AI referral traffic. This is an interesting one. We know that like when it's very clean and you can track traffic from LLM, it converts at a really great rate. Oftentimes that data is not super clean, so I actually treat it as like directional at best. And then pipeline influence. So you can connect some of that, that LLM traffic directly to pipeline opportunities. But oftentimes when I'm doing like a broader project like this, I am doing a lot of like pre-post analysis, being like, this is where we are right now. As we flip on these, this is where we're trending towards. And I always like to have like visibility as a proxy or a leading metric, but then something as far as like pipeline volume, et cetera, that ties to that visibility work just to make sure that we have like we're anchoring it in a metric that actually moves the business. And I actually think that like this is why it is very important when you're thinking about either a short-term or a longer-term AEO strategy. Visibility is a part of it for sure, but also the ability to tie it to actual like revenue or business metrics, or at least make like an inference with like a pre-post analysis is going to be very, very important just for the future of your program and how that program gets funded, et cetera. Attribution is messy. I'll be the first one to say it for sure, but like there are creative ways to do this for sure.
One thing that we've chatted about in the past and was some of the conversion intent that Webflow saw from
Yeah.
LLMs. Like, why do you think there is like just higher intent with LLMs than maybe some like traditional search or even some other channels?
Yeah, I mean, like it all comes down to like folks that are doing their research on or within an LM, right? Like it's typically they have a problem. They ask, who can be a solution to said problem, and then they're doing comparison to competitors. They're looking at price. So by the time it actually lands on your website, right, they are more informed than ever, right? Like this traffic is more educated than any traffic we've ever seen in the history of marketing, with the exception of like maybe branded search, but then you could argue
Mm.
incrementality, et cetera, on this. And I think it's precisely that, right? And I wish there was a clean way to like really think about it from a click path perspective of like this is all the traffic we got from LLMs, this is how much it converts, et cetera. Really, like sometimes you will get that referring source, oftentimes you will not. So you have to get very comfortable with like directional data more so than ever. And
Mm.
I myself even I come from this background of like um, if you can't measure it from like a direct click path perspective, it doesn't exist. It's BS. I had to unlearn this hardcore as I started to dive into AEO work, where directional data is actually sometimes the most valuable data you can use to influence AEO at scale.
I think that's good for all of us to hear as we're probably all like thinking about our quarterly numbers and what that looks like. And so that's always kind of reassuring when I have these different experts on to say something similar to that. Um, I would add too, as what used to happen was people would come to your website to do some of that advanced research. And
Yep.
so that's where you had a lot of that like top of funnel, middle funnel clicks and traffic because they were coming to like help make a decision. And now a lot of what Josh has walked through is how to influence that answer before they even hit your site. So it's like making sure your comparison pages, your pricing pages are extractable so they do appear in the LLMs. It's almost like having it like on your website again because they're getting the answer there, then they're hitting your homepage directly to then book a demo or book a call or start a free trial, whatever your CTA is there. And so that middle funnel is really being compressed. You want to be on that short list. And I think we can see that directional trend to your point about like why people are just so much more prepared to book a demo, start a free trial from the
Totally.
LLMs.
Totally. And to that point, Josh, as well, you almost have to like rethink a whole other conversation about like how you structure your homepage
Mm.
and what it means, right? Because a year ago, it'd be like you need contextual conversion copy, you need education copy, you need social proof. Now, so much of this traffic already has that by the time they land. So I think about it as like, how do you then fundamentally push users directly into a beautiful product experience as quickly as possible to let them actually play around with the product because they already have the education and resource. So it means conversion on your website, conversion optimization work is very, very, very different.
That is a whole nother conversation.
It's
We really do need to have that though, from like just the CRO conversion rate optimization perspective
100%.
and what that looks like for just the web experience. That's really great. We will have to book that combo for
Yeah, let's
another
do it.
time.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
But wrapping up here,
Sure.
we this is just kind of a summary what that 30-day sprint looks like and maybe how to actually like put it into action.
Yeah, so here's the whole thing on single page, right? So 4 weeks and most of that work is in week two. And so if we just recap it, like week one's going to be build the retrieved but not cited list, right? The first play and start the refresh sweep, right? So hardest commercial queries first, not your easiest pages like blog pages. Stand up for numbers that same week, right? Like you want that pre-baseline so you can do like a pre-post analysis as you start to kick off this work. And very importantly, right, like week one, fire off those offsite emails very early. Like they take runway. People need to actually update these things offsite. So don't sleep on that one. And then by the time you get to rebuild and test week two, then you look at things like your top five comparison pages and your pricing page, tables, real numbers, short lines. And here's a piece that people skip, right? Like I think you ask ChatGPT what you cost before you touch anything and screenshot it, and then ask it again. And that
Mhm.
double screenshot is, it's like directional proof because it's just so important as you think about updating pricing pages. And then by the time you hit week three and four, right, you're mostly waiting and watching. And when I say wait and watch, like you should be going to do like other offsite stuff for your broader AEO strategy. But this is where you'll see like refresh pages come back into rotation. Comparison and pricing pages will start to get cited on queries that are closest to that sale, right? Closest to the money. Track the pages you touched as part of their own cohort is very important as well, not like blended in with whole site numbers. Because if you skip that, right, like you can't prove that any of this effectively worked. So it's cool, right? Like if you approach a sprint like this, by the time the board deck gets built, you're changing the story and you're getting yourself out of like the hot seat where it's not like why is this channel behind? It's here's what we're doing to make it climb, and
Mm,
here's some directional data behind it. And then you'll start to see like deals come in or citations come in through this channel. And I've had a lot of success with these automations as well. I really have. I think that the nuance is just if you're thinking about that short term sprint, right? Like there is a lot to be done on onsite. If you're thinking about the longer term, it really is like prioritizing your time differently. So there's nuance and there's like a deep understanding needed on short versus medium versus long term of how you win here overall. But I have high confidence that folks listening to this, folks reading the article I put out here, can start doing this work today, and we'll see short term influence on AEO strategy.
for sure. I love this sprint here and how to think about it. Everyone go ahead and screenshot that so you can share it out with your team. And then I also just dropped in the newsletter from Josh's Substack that you'll want to check out. That goes into a little bit more detail on a lot of the stuff that we talked about here today. Yeah, so really great tips that you can implement all the way right now. And we have a lot of questions coming in. So we're going to dive into that here in a second. But if you do want to learn how you can turn AI search from just a channel into a growth channel, you can book a live demo with the AirOps team, growth at airops.com, put webinar in the subject line to see some of the playbooks that you can do for this refresh. We have a lot of options to where you can automate a lot of the stuff that Josh talked about today, including like updating comparisons, adding tables, adding lists, those sorts of things across your content library, and then also which pages that you should be targeting from like a prompt perspective, a citation perspective, and then you can learn more about how other teams are doing this, like Asana, Angie, Bitly, and several others. So scan that QR code or feel free to drop us a line, growth@airapps.com, putting webinar in the subject line to learn how you can implement a lot of these practices that we chatted about today. All right, yes, there will be a recording. I'll go ahead and answer that frequently asked question. We're gonna dive into some Q&A here, and one of the ones that I thought was super interesting, I forgot who asked it exactly, but on the 20-minute rewrite, they said, or they were asking about what should you do about product pages that may take a little bit more time, but may not necessarily have like new information.
Yeah.
What are some things that we could do for those?
Yeah, I think like there's the structural component of it where you're looking at like format of those pages, making sure they aren't too dense from like a paragraph versus like easier format to build those pages with. So like that would be probably step one from my perspective. And then there's also like if there's any unique or proprietary data that supports what that product does from an impact perspective, right? That unique data, like I'm such a big fan of exposing as much unique data as you can because LMs love this stuff. So if you're working with a product page and that product influences conversion at, 6 times more, right? Like find some of that customer data, expose it and put it in there. And for sure, like you'll see results from this.
Yeah, and then I had a question that came in too. Somebody was asking about the influence of FAQs and schema. I
Yeah.
know you're not like a technical SEO, but you did work at like Webflow,
Yeah.
and I know you had some probably some insight on that and maybe some of the
Yeah.
influence there.
Absolutely, absolutely. TLDR is like they still work. As I think about even any client I approach, right? When I'm working doing on-site work, there's going to be like my on-site foundations. A lot of that will be schema markup, will be facts pages, will be again like this comparison pages and how you structure content. So don't sleep on it, right? Like I think that that technical work, that schema work, adding facts pages that are good facts pages, uh, is it's so critical, right? It is foundational to on-site work.
And then somebody asked specifically about who is this Lisa? Is there a way to really track acquisition and session sources from LLMs like in GA4 or
Yeah.
anything like that, or kind of how do you set that up? I know they've started to roll out some more things around that, but how are you advising your clients?
Yeah, it's messy for sure, right? So like you're gonna get some data that comes over, some traffic data that comes over that has a referring URL that you can very, very easily sort into a bucket that is from LLM. More often than not, you're not. The other part of that too is that if you think about human behavior, we still live in this world where a lot of folks will do their research on an LLM, go back and forth, have full conversations, and then still open a new tab and then find your company through typing into Google. This behavior happens all of the time still. I still do this behavior. Um, and a lot of that too is like if you remember probably a year ago, chat was going really heavy on like embedding links so you could like go out to another site in the response and you're not getting a lot of those. So a lot of times you're just like you're forced, right? Or like the easiest path is actually opening that new tab. So that'll get indirectly attributed to like direct or
Mhm.
organic, etc. So the cleanest way to do this that I've found so far uh is you have your visibility, right? And like that's how you track like your overall AEO work. You're going to have some like directional data, and that's again, I even call like LLM source traffic directional because it's so inconsistent. And then you're going to have your revenue data, right? And theoretically, like if you fix your visibility and the right visibility, you should see the correlation between your revenue metric or your conversion metric going up and to the right as well. But you are making a lot of inferences. So this is when I talk about like getting out of that old school thought of like very, very clean click paths. We just don't live in that world right now, unfortunately. So the answer is like there's ways to do it to have confidence and a decent amount of fidelity around how you're tracking what you're doing, what you're getting for it. It's not as easy as the days of like I have this paid budget, I'm putting it out there, I'm monitoring CAC LTV, it's very clean. You send that traffic to a landing page, you track conversions, you make an estimate with like X amount of conversions go on to be customers, X amount can expand. It's just not the world we live in right now. And I'm also open like I think like I've changed my thinking on this 4 or 5 or 6 times in the last year, and I probably will continue to, but that's where I'm at right now on it.
Yeah, and I would also add GSC has specifically rolled out some like generative search results. So they've started listing out like some of the URLs that they're including within the AI overviews in AI mode. I think that's still in beta, but I noticed in my instance, I just got that as well. And then this is a little counterintuitive, but everyone hook up their Bing Webmaster Index because you can obviously the traffic volume won't be quite as high, but they have a really good back end that a little bit more robust than GSC for seeing like which pages are being cited. And of course, they're fueling Microsoft Copilot. They also have some
Yep.
relationships with some of the other LLMs. So that is another data source to help you kind of understand maybe some of the pages that are being cited and what to like optimize and what to refresh.
Yeah. It's probably fair to make the inference that like those same pages that are being hit on Bing are the same pages being hit on Google. So again, directional, directional.
Directional. Yeah, yeah.
I keep going back to that word, but that is the world.
I thought this was an interesting question. Let's go back to third-party sources for a second.
Yeah.
They asked about sponsored content or advertorials. Do these have weight into AEO? I have a couple thoughts on that, but would also like to hear what you're.
Long and short of it is they do, and I've found also at the same time like inconsistencies with working with like creators or different types of like third party advertorials, etc. And the uniqueness is like sometimes I will actually see more come through from a citation perspective through like smaller names or smaller creators that just have like really, really great quality versus trying to work with like these at scale ones. So,
Mm,
not a perfect answer, but like I don't have a perfect answer for it right now because I've seen such variation or so many variabilities is probably a better way to say it across like working with multiple customers on this.
yeah. I would say it's definitely like a gray area. I mean, I would say that the LLMs can't always tell the difference between like sponsored and like native content on some of this. But yeah, I mean, like run your own test on like try like I know a lot of like big publishers offered like sponsored content where they would have like an article. So try to run that and then also try to get into it more like organically and just kind of see what happens there too.
Yeah, I will say like just doubling down that creator side. I know the question wasn't specifically that, but I have seen a lot of companies recently double down on like quality creators, and they're
Mm,
actually doing like a really great job with this. And it's cool because like it is a channel that even though it's third party, you can provide a lot of influence over because you're working with those creators, you're giving them creative direction, or like you have inputs on effectively what gets published. So it almost becomes this like spider web network so I'm not telling you to like go find the top five, biggest follower like creators in your industry that have the largest followings. I'm telling you like do some research on chat, on Perplexity, etc., and understand like what types of creators in your category are actually getting picked up consistently, and then do a test. Like it's for
mhm.
sure working, and some people are nailing this right now.
Yeah, I'm definitely seeing some smaller creators being cited in our space for sure.
Totally. Yeah.
So it
Absolutely.
is kind of interesting there. I think this is a good question that I wanted to end on. This is from Marco, and it is kind of a bigger question going back to attribution. Like, how do you navigate convos where the org isn't mature enough to properly attribute pipeline to channel outputs like AEO tactics, or how the pipeline, or do you just look at how the pipeline has grown overall? Like, I think the bigger point there, maybe, and you already hit on this, is just like, are you looking at paid versus organic? And then that includes like traditional search versus AI search and direction. Like, maybe just some general words of advice as we're all like trying to think about our pipeline
Yeah.
numbers, our quarterly numbers, and how we like give channel
Yeah, yeah,
attribution.
yeah, yeah. I hate to keep saying there's there's nuance in this, but there is, right? Like the dashboard today, it should include things that are very easy click paths, like your paid, like your SEO work, right? Like your affiliate work is usually very easy to track back. And then you're gonna have this other bucket that's like it's gonna be gray at best. And that's where you're
Mhm,
making some inferences, right? Or cross visibility to revenue, the other side of that too is attribution right now being so murky. Like even some of those other channels, without like a like really fleshed out MTA model, are gonna have inherent assumptions in them regardless. So like as an example, folks are still doing research on LLMs, and then they'll go to open another browser, like I said, and then they might click that first link that is a paid search link, right? Branded. And then that attribution now is going to branded paid search, right? So it's like, yeah, there is a way for sure to like segment what channels are very easily clickable and then having that box of like gray and trying to like get into that. I actually think that like the more scientific you are, I can't believe I'm saying this as someone who grew up as like quant only. Like the more scientific you are, the you'll get led in directions that aren't necessarily correct or erroneous. Never in my career have I been more bullish on directional data and then executing based off of directional data. And then doing like this broader pre-post analysis of like, this was our baseline, call it baseline self-serve new business customers in a PLG business, right? This was our 6 months AEO sprint. This is an hour baseline, and then correct it for seasonality. And I think it's a
Mhm.
very, very, very smart way to tell the org that, hey, this investment is working or isn't working, but you'll never find single point of causation amongst your AEO strategy of like what effectively influenced all of that.
Wow. That is also that's encouraging in some ways, disheartening in
Yeah.
others. But I think it's like a really good spot to end on. Josh, I really appreciate your time today. This has been super fun. I'm sure everyone can find you on LinkedIn right there, and I'll send out the links to that as well as stackgtm.ai. I already dropped the link in the chat to your newsletter as well. Actually, I'll just redo that again since we're all here. So let me
Awesome.
put that article here. Um, and then, yeah, so feel free to find Josh online on LinkedIn. You can find me there as well. And then I thought I had one more slide, but we're actually having Kevin Indig come back next week. He's going to be talking about winners and losers in AI search. So be sure and sign up for that as well. airops.com/events. I'll be sending out some messages about that. This recap, I'll be sending out a recap soon and on the recording. So everyone will have that to definitely review and to take another look at. So, Josh, really appreciate your time today and have a great afternoon.
Josh, thanks so much, man. If anyone wants to jam on any of this, I am really easy to track down and always open to have conversations. This is my biggest passion right now.
Cool. All right. Talk to everyone soon.
Thanks.
Thanks so much.